So my name is Chris Schubert. I'm a member of a subgroup on data quality. Marie Klemola is representing the task force or the subgroup on fair metrics. Both of our chairs are not attending here to this meeting. That's why we are here and presenting these interims result, I would say. And it was for us, of course, an opportunity here to have a first offline meeting of our task forces due to the number of attendances. It's an open session, and it should be also an open discussion here. So the first presentation gives some view on the fair matrix and the status. Then I will take this part for the data quality, and we will end up in a common discussion also for common planning, for discuss the next steps and what is required. Yeah, okay. Please, Marie.
Thank you, Chris. So there are 2 slides to begin with about the whole task force, and then I have a couple of slides about the fair metrics, and then it's Chris again. So this is a multidisciplinary group, so we have 26 experts, and we kicked off in December 21. And as mentioned, we have 2 co-chairs that couldn't be here today, so Mark Wilkinson and Carlo Lakagnina. So we've had bi-weekly meetings, online of course, so this is the first time that we see each other, or the persons who could be here. And then what are the goals? So we are exploring issues related to FAIR, the governance of FAIR, inconsistency between FAIR, and I will say a few words about those, and the FAIR metrics uptake. And then we have, so we have 2 subgroups, basically that's all about the FAIR metrics, and then we have the data quality that Chris will be talking about. But this, I think it's a very interesting area of challenges, let's put it that way, and it's very related to the long-term preservation issues that we just discussed earlier. So a few words about the FAIR metrics subgroup led by Mark Wilkinson, and the slides are by Mark as well. So we have had 3 key objectives, and then one is the governance of FAIR evaluations. So the group, we are not really that happy with the word of governance here, but that's something more or less given to us. But there's we have the FAIR principles, then we have FAIR metrics based on those principles, but there's actually nothing and no one who can say that how to use those metrics, which is a valid metrics, who is more right than others, or maybe everybody is right in their interpretation. But there's a huge number of questions and issues there to be addressed, and and especially when we are seeing that, for example, funders are saying that you must be fair. So how to measure that fairness? We will have a governance paper coming out, so it's somewhere in the pipeline, in the EOSC Association pipeline, so we hope that it will be out any time, any day now, basically, but I don't have a timetable to give you. Another very practical problem that we have explored is the inconsistency between FAIR evaluation tools. So we have a lot of evaluation tools existing, and I think new ones are popping up all the time, and that's great. There are a lot of communities, and there's a reason for all these tools to exist. But the generic evaluators, they are giving dramatically different results. So, for example, I already mentioned the NEOS Nordic project. So we used the Wilkinson evaluator and the Fuji evaluator to our same sample, and the scores were totally different. So this is also a problem when you are if you are only looking at the scores. So there's a lot to be said about the value and limitations of these FAIR evaluators and the metrics. And then we have a task to evaluate the applicability and uptake of the FAIR metrics and specifically the maturity indicator. So this will be a survey that will be going out any moment now. So I already mentioned this, so there will be a white paper on governance, so keep an eye on it. We will be looking for your feedback on it. Once we have it, we have several use cases there. We have imagined things where this governance is needed, and also some governance models. And there's an example of how these results differ. So for example, for this one, the FAIR evaluator gives a score of 20 out of 22, and then Fuji gives only 2 out of 24. So you can already see that what are the metrics? There's a different number of metrics, and they both claim that they are assessing the fairness. So there's a lot of details there, and we are making some recommendations, like use signposting, for example, to start with. And there's a lot of information about signposting in one of our reports that will be, that's all also in the pipeline and will be out. But yeah, this is just something we wish and we recommend that all the evaluators will do, so that we have this minimum common level to start with. But of course, FAIR is also, and the principles are also about the communities. So communities may have different metrics, but that's another discussion. And there's a signposting harvester server, so that's a sort of, if you are the technical person, you might want to take a look at it. And as I've already mentioned, we'll have a survey coming out anytime now. So if you get it, please provide your responses, and we'll be very happy about that. And that's all I had about the FAIR Metrics group. And so Chris, to you.
Yeah, perfect. So, yeah. As we said, or I said in the introduction, so I'm representing now the status of the data quality group and the results. So where we start in the end. The main issue when the group was born is really to have an understanding, common understanding. What we are talking about, if we use quality, and if we want to deal with quality approaches, and yeah, and what quality means. So within the data set life cycles, also the actors and rules are involved. The benefit of quality itself, if you produce data service and data sets, the workflow you have to assess, and of course also data types and existing certification. We did here also a desk research, so we analyzed all, so a big number of existing standards, like from what is described and then published by ISO. Also, we discovered a lot of literature, set up also a common vocabulary, that we have a common semantic of our work here. We gathered also a lot of or external inputs, call it lessons learned here, of agreed or practices which are in operational services, expertises from RDA and in general. One use case we had in presentation that comes from the Inspire directive. It's more on geospatial data here, sharing geospatial data, bioimaging, core trust seal as well, and we had also some input from the energy sector. End of this year, we will also publish for review a recommendation document, and to gather the landscape on data quality, we started or initiated also an RDA session in June on the RDA plenary, and we drafted a survey. This RDA session, so we had a lot of other initiatives like ESIP or I don't know the name now, but as well as co-data here. And also the beginning of our study is based on a survey, and it for us, of course, you have to ask the right question, and we got a lot of information here. This I didn't want to explain, but it's a little bit a story out of the survey we did with some conclusions. But this is also a part of the document we want to publish. In the end, it's important that we are talking about data set and not data quality itself. So data set quality information describes the issue with the surroundings like instruments, variables, measurement, observation, collection, as well as the access to describe the entire life cycle of a data set. So we have we have carry about the quality of data, the input and output, the quality of the metadata description, or metadata in general, and the documentation, the software and the workflows, the procedures and processes which are involved, and as well also part of the infrastructures. And it's that a data set has to refer to identify a collection of data. So it's data files or records on a database in the same data format, having the same variable and specification. And this is important, or also a common understanding to describe the data set quality or as information. So why we need this? So of course, data quality is important for decision making. We use reliable information, and also in the reliable information in the process chain. We have also use a kind of compliance reporting support. So we have to know, or it should be described if the data set is, how the data set is created, and it should be also understood by humans and machines, of course, and the understandability of clarity and clarity of data is important here. And data quality supports also data information and data sharing and reuse, and the data we use here. So. And the challenge, of course, is that we have to deal not only with one specific or one scientific domain. So we discussed a lot about this, the multidisciplinary understanding of data quality, and each discipline has a unique understanding about their quality But in the end, we have to identify the common rules, and we have to face similar needs and challenges here. And the common interesting is within the or was here in learning and sharing knowledge and identify best practice across the discipline here. So this is just an example here. What we did, what was the input within the task force, and one example, I took it here from a process on standardized or controlled vocabulary here. We extend and developed, adopted here as an important thing, but yeah, just an example. In the end, or now, we created a recommendation document, and the recommendation are a collection of a set of principles and guidelines for the EOSC and also for the future of this task force itself. So the important thing or an issue is here that the data set have to come with or have to set up with contextualization information here to understand and correctly the interpretation of them. EOSC is not in charge of data content assessment, and we have to set up clear criteria to prevent researchers concerned about how their data will be managed and to lower the barriers of data sharing. The development of a pre-operational quality function have to be tailored to the EOSC stakeholder requirements, and EOSC itself or the framework should support and push each community to agree the community standards and to understand the basics or basis for quality assessment here and the fair sharing and fair metrics on research data sets. So I think this was the last one. Yeah. My name is Chris Schubert. I'm from the TU Wien 2 from the library here, task force member. I'm also involved in the ISO technical committee and sharing of one group on Earth observation for data sharing and data management principles here. So thank you here. If you have any question or discussion, we will start soon or immediately. One thing is, of course, do you need a recommendation or a document which is has now 70 pages? So would it be really helpful to understand the quality issues we discovered here? So, but yeah, please.
Just Carl Presser from Primotech in Switzerland. Just for understanding, what do you mean by the next TF? So next task force is kind of this ending and there is a next one, or what do you mean with next TF?
No, it's the next activity within the task force. This was the first year, so and we have this outcome. The task force in general is 2 years. It was set up. But now we have reached a milestone, so to publish a document or this our results, and now we have to decide what we are doing next. But also, data quality is not an ending story. Yeah, so.
So please stop me if you don't want this question. But since this obviously puts quite a burden on researchers, and I'm in favor of doing that, so that must be clear. But since it does put a burden on them, what do we do to incentivize doing all of this? And the one question I ask all over the place, then I usually get an answer, then I go and check, and then it doesn't work out. That is, we put DOIs on data, and I always tell people, in particularly young researchers, that in your CV in the future you put your publications and you put your data sets. And I don't want to employ anyone without any data sets, because that's not very trustworthy. But how do I track, for example, citations of these DOIs for data sets? And I do get an answer now and then I go and check, but it doesn't work for me. And the reason for asking is that we need these incentives, because all of this is tremendously important, but you don't get through if you can't build a new business model. The current business model is centered on journal articles. It's a 300-year-old invention, and now we need a new one. So that, just say stop if this is not the right audience for the question.
I think it's really okay. So and important thing. So really that you produce or create